Okay, so the sound a ventilator makes? Not what you think. It's not a beep. It's a hiss, then a click, then this little mechanical sigh, over and over, like something's breathing for a person who flat out forgot how. I'm standing in the doorway of room 14 at Children's Memorial, watching my 16-year-old kept alive by a machine, and behind me, in the hallway, my husband laughed. Not a nervous laugh, not a holding it together laugh, a real one. Easy. The kind you'd give a buddy's dumb joke at a cookout. I turned around. He's on the phone, one hand in his pocket going, No, it's fine, it's handled, don't sweat the timeline. And then he laughs again, 20 feet from the window where I can see Sophie's chest rise and fall on a machine schedule instead of her own. Sit with that for a second. Because I had to. I stood in that hallway doing the thing your brain does when it just refuses what your eyes handed it. Like, nah, I must be reading this wrong. I was not reading it wrong. And the guy who ended up spelling it out for me walked onto that floor 3 hours later in a uniform with more gold on the shoulder than I'd ever seen up close. I didn't invite him. Didn't know him from Adam. Introduced himself as Rear Admiral Thomas Kessler, U.S. Navy. And by the time he was done talking, I realized the worst night of my life actually kicked off 5 months earlier. I just hadn't clocked it. Name's Elena Reyes. Before that Tuesday in March, my life was pretty standard issue. Busy, a little tired, mostly fine, the usual grind. I taught 8th grade science in a district that never had enough textbooks to go around. My husband, Marcus, sold commercial insurance, the kind that covers whole fleets of trucks and warehouses full of stuff nobody thinks about till it's on fire. We had a house, a mortgage that basically counted as a third kid, a golden retriever named Biscuit who was scared to death of the vacuum, and a daughter, Sophie, smack in the middle of full 16-year-old chaos, driver's permit, a boyfriend I pretended not to stress about, a group chat that had her cracking up so hard she'd send me screenshots. Sophie wasn't my biological kid, and I gotta say that up front because it matters later. Not gonna dance around it. I married Marcus when she was 4. Her mom passed suddenly, an aneurysm, no warning, the kind of death that leaves a whole house full of half-finished stuff. I didn't come in trying to replace anybody. I just showed up and stuck around. Learned to French braid off YouTube at 11 at night. Sat through 11 dance recitals and one genuinely rough violin phase. When she got her first period at school at 13 and was too embarrassed to call her dad, she called me. 12 years and not one single day did I think of that kid as anything but mine. My sister Dana's a trauma nurse, and she's the type who'll tell you the truth even when it costs her. She side-eyed Marcus from day one. Not for any specific reason, just a gut feeling, like some dogs won't go near certain people, no cap. He's got a great handshake and dead eyes, she told me at my own wedding. 3 glasses of wine in, and I laughed it off. 'Cause that's just what you do with your sister's hot takes on your wedding day. Marcus had that charm that warms up a whole room. Neighbors loved him, clients trusted him. Guy remembered your birthday, your kid's soccer schedule, would drop everything to help you move a couch. But there was this thing I noticed over the years and never had words for till way later. Dude was generous with anybody who could do something for him, and weirdly cold with anybody who couldn't. I used to chalk it up to efficiency. Some guys just run that way, I figured. Here's the wound underneath all of it. The thing that made this whole disaster hit different. I already lost one family, way back. Got bounced through foster care until I was adopted at 9, and the one fear that's lived under every good year of my adult life since is this: that the family I built could get yanked out from under me just as easily and just as randomly as the first one was. I built my whole identity around being the mom who stays, the one who doesn't bail. So when I say what happened next broke something in me structurally, I need you to know this isn't drama for drama's sake. It was an old fear finally getting proof it had been right the whole time. It was a Tuesday. Sophie had cheer practice, then was driving herself to grab her boyfriend Caleb for a study session. 4 months with her license, careful as hell, checking her mirrors like she was getting graded on it. Marcus took his truck that morning instead of his sedan, said he had a job site to check out for a client. Seemed like nothing. Turned out to be everything. 6:47 p.m. A delivery truck blows a red light on Route 9 and T-bones Sophie's car on the driver's side. She got airlifted. I'm mid-grading lab reports when the cross-country coach, who happened to be driving behind her, calls me instead of 911 first because he panicked. So I'm getting the story in broken pieces, hands shaking so bad I can barely hold the phone up. Called Marcus 4 times before he picked up. When he finally did, he sounded distracted, almost annoyed, like I'd interrupted something important. I told him what I knew. There's this pause, not a dad-absorbing terror pause, more like a calculating one, looking back. And then he goes, "Okay, I'll meet you there." Not, "Oh my God," not, "Is she breathing?" Just, "I'll meet you there." Drove to that hospital with no clue if my kid was even alive. Ran lights I will never, ever admit to running. And the whole time, one thought just sat there under the panic, like a rock at the bottom of a lake. Something about that pause was off. Didn't have a name for it yet, just felt the floor shift a little, the way you feel a beam crack before you actually understand what's wrong with the house. Sophie went into surgery for internal bleeding and a skull fracture. The surgeon, Dr. Okafor, had that specific, trained, calm energy that's somehow both comforting and terrifying at once. "We're optimistic," she said, "but the next 72 hours matter." I flat out asked her to just tell me if my daughter was going to make it. She looked me dead in the eye. "I think so. Can't promise you that, but I think so." Most honest sentence anybody's ever handed me. Dana showed up 40 minutes after I called, still in her scrubs from her own shift, and she didn't do the whole comforting speech thing. Just sat down, grabbed my hand, and stayed put. That's Dana's whole deal in my life, and it never mattered more than that week. At one point she goes, quiet, "Where's Marcus?" And I said he was in the hallway on calls, and she gave me a look I didn't want to think too hard about. Marcus was in and out weirdly. Sit for 10 minutes, check his phone, step out for work, come back. I asked him once to just be present, just for an hour, and he goes, "Elena, the world doesn't stop because we're having a bad week." And something about that "we're" felt so wrong, like he was narrating somebody else's crisis entirely. Day 2, we got a little hope. Sophie's vitals stabilized. Dr. Okafor said the brain swelling had plateaued. Cautious good news, but good news. First real breath I'd taken in 30 hours. Even texted Marcus, "Good update, come by when you can." And for like 1 hour, I actually felt like maybe we'd get through this together. Like maybe this was the thing that'd bring us closer instead of finally showing me the gap that was already there. That hope lasted exactly as long as it took Marcus to walk into that ICU hallway Thursday and laugh on the phone 20 feet from his unconscious kid's window. I called him out right there in the hallway. Not screaming, never once screamed at that man in 12 years, but with a voice so flat and low, a nurse walking by actually slowed down. "What," I said, "is funny about any of this?" He looked at me like I caught him doing something minor, not something monstrous. "It's not about this," he said. "Work thing. Bad timing, my bad." Put his phone away, touched my shoulder. Like that squared it all up. I let it slide one more day because I didn't have room in me for 2 disasters at once. But something had flipped in me. Started noticing stuff I'd trained myself to ignore. The new watch he bought, on sale. That life insurance policy he'd taken out on Sophie 8 months back. I'd asked why, since we already had one, and he'd said, "Cheaper to bundle, it's just smart." And I nodded. Because I don't know insurance and he does. That's literally his job. Friday morning, a guy in Navy dress uniform walks onto the ICU floor and asks the nurses' station for me by name. Not Marcus. Me. Dana's standing right there, and I feel her go dead still. The way she does right before a doctor confirms a diagnosis she already saw coming. Rear Admiral Thomas Kessler. Said he wasn't there in any official capacity. Turns out he's Caleb's grandfather, the boyfriend Sophie was going to pick up, and he'd spent 3 days digging through the delivery company's dashcam footage and insurance filings because something about the crash timeline just wasn't sitting right with him. 30 years doing accident reconstruction, he said. You learn to spot when two stories don't line up. Asked if we could talk somewhere private, and that ask, quiet, careful, almost apologetic, was the moment my whole last 5 months rearranged itself in my head. I knew, sick to my stomach, I was about to learn something I could never unlearn. We sat in a family consultation room, bad lighting, a tissue box that had clearly been refilled 1,000 times for 1,000 other families. Admiral Kessler laid 3 documents on the table like a guy dealing cards he hated holding. First one, a policy application, 8 months old, a $2 million accidental death rider on Sophie, not the modest bundled policy Marcus described, but a whole separate, aggressive one naming Marcus sole beneficiary, filed the same month he quietly took a business loan out against our house that I never signed for and never even knew existed. Second, a text thread pulled as part of some unrelated fraud investigation into the delivery company Marcus insured, same company whose truck hit Sophie's car. Marcus had been going back and forth with their safety manager for weeks about adjusting a maintenance log after a mechanic flagged the brakes as failing inspection. His business depended on keeping that account. A recall would have cost him everything and exposed years of faked safety filings. Third, and honestly the worst one, security footage timestamps showing Marcus at that delivery lot, 40 minutes from the crash site, at 6:12 p.m., 35 minutes before his own daughter got hit by a truck he personally helped keep on the road with brakes he already knew were bad. I sat there feeling something with no name yet. Not rage, not yet. Something colder, quieter. The sound of a floor just completely giving out. Admiral Kessler said, real soft, "I'm not here to tell you what to do with this. I'm here 'cause that's my grandson's girlfriend in that room, and I couldn't sit on it." Stared at those documents a long time. Then I said the one line out of this whole mess I'd actually want you to remember. I spent 12 years scared of losing a family I chose. I'm done being scared of a man who never chose us back. Called Marcus, told him to get to the hospital, didn't tell him why. He shows up 20 minutes later, breezy, apologizing about traffic, and I meet him in that same consultation room, Admiral Kessler standing quiet by the window, Dana next to me with her arms crossed like a witness who already made up her mind. "What's going on?" Marcus says, and I watch his eyes catch on those documents before I even open my mouth. First time in 12 years I see real fear cross that man's face. "Tell me about the brakes," I said. He tries the smooth voice first. "Elena, whatever you think you're looking at." But Admiral Kessler cuts right in, calm, procedural, the voice of a guy who's broken bad news to families his whole career. "Mr. Reyes, I've spent 3 days matching your business records to the maintenance logs on the vehicle that hit your daughter. I know exactly what I'm looking at. Questions whether your wife does yet." Marcus's face does something I'll never forget. Doesn't crumble right away. It recalculates. I watch him hunting for an angle, same as he's done his whole life, and finding none, he does what cornered people do. Gets angry instead of honest. "You have no idea the pressure I was under," he says. "That account was everything. I was gonna fix it quiet. Nobody was supposed to get hurt." "Nobody was supposed to get hurt," I repeat back. "Your daughter's in a coma 4 doors down and you're talking to me about pressure." "She's not even..." he starts and catches himself half a second too late. "Say it," I said. He didn't. Didn't have to. 12 years raising that girl, and in the worst moment of both our lives, he reached for the one sentence that told me exactly how much those 12 years ever meant to him. Dana stood up right then, and for the only time this whole story, she raised her voice. "You laughed," she said, "in that hallway. While she was on a ventilator, I saw you." Marcus had zero comeback for that either. There isn't one. The insurance policy, the faked maintenance logs, the loan against our house, all of it spilled out that afternoon. No courtroom, just a small, ugly room with bad lighting. But it landed exactly how truth's supposed to land. Dead on, in front of witnesses. Nowhere left for him to stand. Marcus didn't fully confess. Guys like him rarely do. He minimized. called the loan temporary, called the policy standard practice, called the maintenance thing a misunderstanding that got out of hand. But Admiral Kessler had already called somebody at the NTSB before Marcus even finished his sentence, and by that night, an actual federal investigator was going through those same documents. Marcus left the hospital that night, and I haven't let him back. Not in that room, not in my house, not anywhere near my daughter recovering. Wish I could tell you he broke down, grieved who he'd become. He didn't. Lawyered up within 18 hours. That told me everything I needed to know, honestly. The quiet moment that caught me off guard came 2 days later, alone at Sophie's bedside at 2 a.m., her hand in mine, machines still doing their steady thing. Figured I'd feel shattered. Instead, felt something closer to relief, which felt straight up wrong to feel with my kid still unconscious. But there it was. The relief of finally getting proof I hadn't been imagining that low hum of wrongness all those years. The small thing that told me everything had changed. Biscuit, our dog, who Marcus swore hated the car and needed to stay home, rode with Dana to the hospital that weekend to see Sophie through the window, tail going a mile a minute, totally fine. Turns out Marcus just never bothered taking him anywhere. Such a tiny thing. Wrecked me more than the documents did. Sophie woke up 9 days after the crash. Recovery's been slow, not exactly cinematic. PT twice a week, headaches that flatten her for a whole day, a limp doctors say might stick around for good. She knows most of it now. Didn't hide it from her, chose my words careful, and the day I told her she went quiet a long while, then said, "So he really was never gonna say I was his." And I didn't have a soft answer for that, so I just held her hand and let it be as messed up as it actually was. Divorce is still crawling through the courts. Federal investigation into the maintenance fraud still ongoing, and Marcus's business is basically dust at this point. Not gonna pretend this wraps up with him in cuffs on camera. It hasn't, might never. And I've made peace with some truths just getting their payback slow and boring, through paperwork instead of one big cinematic gotcha moment. Sophie and Caleb are still together, a little more serious than your average 16-year-olds, the way people get after they've watched each other survive something. Admiral Kessler still checks in on her, all gruff about it, like it embarrasses him how much he cares. Dana moved 4 blocks from us in April without really running it by me first, and when I asked why, she said, "Somebody in this family ought to be close enough to just show up." And I let that be enough. I'm not the woman who trusts easy anymore. Don't know if I ever will be again, for real. But I'm the mom who stayed. That part was never up for debate. And turns out, that's the only part that actually mattered in the end. People keep asking if I regret those 12 years. Like, knowing how it ended rewrites what they were. It doesn't. A man's ending doesn't get to rewrite a kid's whole childhood. What I've learned is smaller and weirder than some big lesson. It's this. The people who actually belong to you were never the ones who share your blood or your last name. They're the ones who show up in the hallway, stay in the room, and never once, not even in your worst hour, need to be asked twice. Still hear that ventilator sometimes, in the quiet parts of the day. Hiss, click, sigh. Not 'cause it haunts me, 'cause it reminds me what real presence actually sounds like. Steady, unglamorous, refusing to quit, whether anybody's watching or not.